joining us now is a great attorney for an even greater law firm, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, a group, one of the only ones in this state, that is attempting to hold liberals accountable under the very law that they abuse. Lucas Weber joins us. And Lucas, first of all, if you were, say, elected AG of Wisconsin and you would have my vote, would you make your campaign slogan, if you were running for re-election, would it be, I'm an AG, I'm an AG, I'm an AG? Because I think you got a winning slogan right there, sir.
I think that's certainly one the voters would like.
So, on behalf of Will, you have sent a letter to the Wisconsin Election Commission urging detailed answers to very specific and very good questions from the Department of Justice, which has recently demanded materials related to how exactly WEC, Wisconsin's Election Commission, is handling the voter database. Just kind of in layman's terms, can you give us an overview of what's been going on and what it is that you're urging WEC and its commissioners do?
Yeah, so federal law requires every single state to have a centralized database of registered voters. Federal law requires those databases be administered and maintained at the state level. Wisconsin is not in compliance with it. And there have been complaints filed with WEC, with DOJ before, because Wisconsin has, 1,850 different municipal clerks around the state who all get to control the list. So DOJ sent them a letter. United States Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division, sent a letter to WEC and said, hey, we got some complaints. We're investigating to see if Wisconsin is breaking the law. Could you answer these questions for us? And they laid out 7 questions to WEC. WEC responded with really just, in my opinion, evasive answers, incomplete answers, very short answers. And so we followed up with a more detailed response to DOJ, using our expertise here in Wisconsin, just to let DOJ know that, hey, here's what we think you should be asking them directly, just some questions to get to the root of the problem and figure out what WEC is doing.
And that's exactly what I think the DOJ needs, because they've got to monitor 50 different election commissioners and commissions and secretaries of state, typically the government office responsible for running an election in the state. We, of course, have the Wisconsin Election Commission and the Ethics Commission. I want to get in the history of that. But WEC has been not just evasive, but I was only half joking about the hysterical shrieking anytime anyone asks the Wisconsin Election Commission to actually enforce election law, at least when it comes to anything that conservatives might have concerns about. So what specifically do you want the DOJ to ask that maybe they didn't get down to the granular level that they should have on?
Yeah, like you said, WEC is like one of those old time cartoons where the character, everywhere they turn, they step on a rake and it hits them in the face.
Yes, like Sideshow Bob. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Sideshow Bob. Yeah, that's WEC. And in this case, they provided an answer. They're required to compare voter registrations with the DOT list, just to make sure that things are accurate. They said, yeah, we do that for electronic registrations, but for paper registrations, we follow a different process. And they didn't elaborate on the process. And of course, here in Wisconsin, we have same-day voter registration. People can register to vote and vote that same day. So it's very important that this check gets done. So we asked DOJ, hey, make sure you make WEC elaborate on this. That's something that they can do. The second thing is federal law requires states to remove voters who are not eligible to vote from the voter list. What Wisconsin does is they actually keep them in the list indefinitely. They just add a little tag that says they are inactive at that time. But they all stay on the list forever. That's a problem. It leads to a lot of ineligible voters who are on our list, and maybe they are tagged as ineligible, but that's confusing, and it leads to a lot of bad data. And third, there's a real question over who is actually in charge of Wisconsin's voter registration list. Is it WEC? Is it local administrators? Federal law requires that it be done at the state level. WEC responds and says, no, we have very little to do with it. That's a problem. Wisconsin is not in compliance with federal law. So these are just some of the things that we hope US DOJ will follow up with WEC on as they investigate the wrongdoing that's going on there.
What are some of the other issues independent of the voter lists? I personally, I think the big one, just as a brief aside, is the fact that they are not removing. They'll have one purge, after every presidential election, that violates both state and federal law. That you can't just keep these people on until the state law is very, very clear about the process for removing voters, and they have just been thumbing their noses at it for years, federal law as well. But in addition to the voter list data, what else does WEC or does Will believe that the DOJ needs to kind of probe WEC about? Because to me, there's a number of different areas that they are, I believe, willfully deficient.
Yeah, I think, as it relates to HAVA, and this particular letter that we sent them was all related to that voter list, but kind of a voter list adjacent issue is the deal with non-citizens who may be on the voter list.
Yep.
We learned from WEC's response here that they basically do absolutely nothing to check if there are non-citizens on the voter list and remove them. So we'd like to know more about that. We'd like to know, frankly, what they are doing to ensure that non-citizens are on there. The people of Wisconsin just last fall, by an overwhelming, 71%, I think it was, voted to approve a constitutional amendment, making clear that in Wisconsin, no non-citizen can vote. What is WEC doing to remove them from the voter roll?
Exactly. And this is actually what I wanted to sort of tee up for you. I'm glad you brought that up. The issue to me of the people who are getting these non-domiciled and temporary resident driver's licenses, which very clearly can be used to vote, that WEC has said, well, the clerk is responsible for checking to see if that's actually an eligible voter. This, to me, is a massive issue that was brought to their attention right before the 2024 election. They sort of batted it away. Oh, well, that's just Congressman Brian Stile and some crazy radio host in Milwaukee and Madison. Well, we don't need to pay attention to this. 9 months later, I still don't have a satisfactory answer as to whether these special driver's licenses have been or could be used to vote, and why they are specifically made to look identical to other driver's licenses in this state. Yeah,
it's nearly 300,000, I think, have been issued over the past 25 years here in Wisconsin. I mean, those are out there. It's a real issue. It's a real concern. We need to know more about it. WEC is being evasive. They're not being transparent. I'm certainly glad US DOJ has taken an interest here. And if you know anything about US DOJ, once they open an investigation, they're going to get some answers. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, I am too, and I really do appreciate you taking the lead on this. If anybody wants to see what those questions are, head to will-law.org, WILL-law.org, to get the latest on the DOJ probe into Wisconsin integrity and just what you, Lucas, are urging that they ask. The letter is incredibly detailed. I read it a couple of times. And if you're into election integrity, this is the stuff that needs to happen. You need to have a state agency responsible for election integrity actually ensuring election integrity, because when you don't, it leads to the belief that they're being lax on the rules to benefit one political party. Lucas Weber, he is an attorney at Will, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Sir, always appreciate you being so generous with your time. Have a wonderful evening.
You too, Dan. Thanks for having me.